So what is at risk if we abandon a Christian worldview as a society? I think that the image that comes to mind of American society abandoning a biblical worldview but still kind of running on the fumes of that worldview is the picture of Wile E. Coyote, who's being tricked by the roadrunner to run over the edge of a cliff. And he's still out there treading air, but he doesn't realize he's out in the middle of nothing until he looks around and sees there's nothing under him, and suddenly he catapults to the valley below into the abyss. And American society is something like that, running on the fumes from the legacy of a Christian worldview, but no longer really believing in it. What do we lose? I think we lose 5 things. So Barry Asmus and I are suggesting first, we risk losing belief in moral accountability to God. The Bible teaches, and American society has believed for years, that God is watching human activity and will hold everyone accountable. I borrowed that phrase, God is watching, from Phil Clements in an early phone call, conference call, and setting up this conference. He used that little phrase, and I thought that's such a great way to capture the biblical idea that the eyes of the Lord are in every place, Proverbs 15:3, keeping watch on the evil and on the good. And so, the Bible can speak to servants, saying, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward, and the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there's no partiality, Colossians 3:23-25. And James tells employers that keep back wages and defraud their employees. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. James 5:4. In other words, God is watching and will hold people accountable. That sense of accountability to God also gives meaning to life and purpose to life. But without that sense of accountability, life loses meaning and business loses any ultimate sense of fulfillment. Without a sense of something bigger than ourselves, the pursuit of possessions becomes a tedious and empty struggle. In the end, it becomes a joyless quest for joy. The Bible teaches that people are morally accountable for their actions because there are tendencies to good and evil in every human heart. By common grace, there is still a tendency to do good, and the work of the law is written on each person's heart, according to Romans 2:14 and 15. But there's, of course, the tendency to evil because there's sin in every heart. In Adam's fall, we sinned all, the New England Primer taught people, and that's in Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So a Christian perspective on moral accountability to God leads to personal integrity in business because people realize that God is watching their conduct and they expect He will hold them accountable. That will tend to make people act in a way that includes honesty and reliability and quality in work and care for others as well as oneself. And I think that by implication, this idea that people have tendencies to good and evil in their hearts and they are responsible for the choices they make between good and evil, that lends support to an economic system in which people are rightly rewarded for the value of their work because of what they've chosen to do. And people who make wrong choices are held responsible for those and will suffer the consequences of those wrong choices. But if we lose this sense of moral accountability, if we lose a Christian worldview, then when no one else is looking, it will lead to shoddy work and theft. When no one else is listening, who knows the truth, it will lead to dishonesty. It will lead to selfishness and greed rather than care for others. It will lead to laziness rather than diligence and faithlessness rather than reliability. What does secular America substitute? What does secular America substitute as a motive for ethical behavior once it abandons accountability to God? Often merely the threat, you will get caught. And then in order to make good on that threat, massive regulatory mechanisms have to be imposed to try to catch the wrongdoers, and endless accountability reports must be submitted to those who watch the watchers. Does the system work very well? Not at all. People planning to do wrong simply calculate that the chance of getting caught seems small, and the rewards look great, and they go ahead and lie about their product or falsify a report, or pilfer from their company, or claim more hours than they actually worked, because unless people really believe that God is watching so that they police themselves, the mere threat of getting caught rings hollow, and moral standards disintegrate, and the cost of everything, of course, increases.